Springfield's Talk 1041, and hello, everyone. Good Monday morning. Hope you're all doing well. Pyramid Roofing Company talk at text line 447 KSGF. If you'd like to text in any questions, comments, feel free to do so. We are going to really put more focus this week on Santa's Angels, the trees going out prior to, well, Thanksgiving. But then with just a lot going on. Last week was a very, very busy week, and it just made it a little more difficult to focus on our Santa's Angels. So we'll be talking about that some during the show this morning as well as through the rest of the week. Those of you who have already adopted kids off the trees, thank you for that. If you're not familiar with how this works, we do it a little bit differently than a number of other organizations in which you see the big drop-off bins, and it is an effort to collect all sorts of different toys and items for kids that then get distributed. But we try to put a personal touch to it, and that is in working with the agency to get an actual wish list from the kids, their name, their age, obviously not their last name, but and then if someone were to ask them for a list, what would you put on that list? Many of these kids have never been asked that question before. Many of them are just recently in the foster care system because of at-home life situations. You know, they may have had families, but families that just ignored Christmas because it wasn't a priority. And, they've just gone without all this time. And so we've got our partner locations where we have the trees set up, and we ask that you go adopt a kid from the tree. And all of the information is on the back of each of the paper ornaments in terms of where to bring the gifts, the deadline to bring the gifts. It's here at the station is where we bring them, and not wrap them. Do not wrap them because the folks who work on their end with the kids are the ones that will do all of the wrapping. They have this big wrapping event, and some of that is just to make sure that what the children receive are appropriate gifts. Because, get weirdos out there that try to, none of you are that way, obviously, but it's just a policy that they have put in place. We have the locations at ksgf.com. And Anchor Tactical Supply being one of them. That is on South Campbell. The A1 Custom Car Care in Republic, as well as Pinnager Chevrolet in Republic. So we got two Republic locations on 60. Then Crown Power and Equipment. That is on East Chestnut Expressway, and Greene County Freight and Food Sales. These are the different locations that you can go and adopt one of those kids. So we ask that you do that. The deadline, what's the deadline?
December 17th.
December 17th. Okay,
So we got just a little over a week.
Yeah, a little over a week. We ask, though, that you don't wait until the last minute.
Yes, please don't allow me to panic.
Sarah gets all panicked worrying about the kid. And if you adopt a kid, if you go and you get one of the paper ornaments from a tree, and then something happens where you run short of money or you run short of time and you're not going to be able to actually purchase the gift items for that child, either put it back on the tree or just bring it by here. You could tape it to the front door if you want. No explanation needed. The one thing we don't want is for any of these kids that were asked to make a list to not have something while all the other kids do on Christmas morning. That is definitely something we want to avoid. So number one priority is that we make sure all of those kids do get adopted out, and so not just adopted out, but get the gifts. And so if you, like I said, you're just not able to, let us know so we can go ahead and make sure somebody does take care of them. And you don't have to get all of the items on their wish list. I ask that you at least one, because again, for so many of these kids, they never have had anyone. They've never known that idea, that feeling. They've never had the feeling of somebody asking them, caring about what it is that they would like for Christmas, and then actually going out and getting that gift for them. And so that's a big part of why we do it the way that we do it. All the details at ksgf.com. We'll have some audio this morning of Donald Trump sitting down on or with Kristen Welker on NBC Meet the Press, talking about everything from pardoning January 6ers all the way up to and including deportation of families and birthright citizenship, ending that. Some of the comments he made. There's the fall of Bashar Assad in Syria. Reports are that he is in Moscow. He's taken safe haven there as rebels have taken over that country, and it's just more chaos in the Middle East. Biden making some incoherent slurs in regards to that. Not slurs, but he was slurring his speech when he came out. And he actually at one point sounded like he was falling asleep as he was talking about this. Netanyahu is expected to make Trump's inauguration, and there are signals that Hamas is, with the election of Donald Trump, already planning on releasing hostages, specifically American hostages. So when you see President-elect Trump and then you see Joe Biden, you really do feel as if Trump is already president of the United States. This was evident in the interaction with world leaders in France as he went over there, the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral. Jill Biden went. Joe Biden, the most devout Catholic ever to occupy the White House for reasons unexplained, did not go. But Jill did. And the photo, have you seen the photos?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I mean, she looks like she has a crush on Trump.
Yeah, she
in
does.
these photos.
She's so excited to be talking to him.
Yeah, maybe she is wanting to marry up.
Maybe.
I mean,
She was probably telling him, I voted for you.
Yeah, she's like, I mean,
there you are right there. I voted for you.
Are you really that happy with Melania? I mean, come on. Yeah. Can't be that happy with her. Many people see Joe Biden as being power hungry. You remember that instance in which she took over one of the meetings that made a lot of press headlines, and many people looked at her as pushing elder abuse all for the sake of power. Maybe she is. She's thinking, hey, Biden's out of there. And, it's like the girl who dates the quarterback and then he breaks his leg. And so then the second string quarterback, it's his turn up, and all of a sudden she's a little interested in him, flirting with him a little bit. Do you know Trump has a perfume and cologne line?
No.
Yes. I mention that because he tweeted out or X'd out of that picture of Jill Biden looking at him.
Mm-hmm.
And what did he... I've got... Enemies can't resist. That... Yeah, it's like $200 a bottle for the perfume and the cologne. I don't know if it's any good or not, but I suspect it smells like success and winning and victory. Quite a bit to cover today, and I think we should have Congressman Burleson as well. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it'll be cloudy with a high near 54. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 30. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny and breezy with a high near 41. And on Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 38.
Pyramid Roofing Company talk at text line 447 KSGF. Coming up, audio of Joe Biden struggling to make it through a teleprompter speech regarding the situation in Syria. So we'll get straight into that, plus more. Oh, and Biden celebrating pansexual and pan-romantic Pride Day, whatever that is. Pan-romantic Pride Day. Grizzly Industrial, largest woodworking, metalworking showroom in the world, right here in Springfield. Over 35,000 square feet of machines on display, over 600 machines. Pick up stores same day, save on shipping costs. Some machines weigh 400 pounds, so you can save a bundle on shipping costs by having that right here, 0% financing. And December, fantastic deals. While they always have great deals on scratch and dent items up to 60% off, with the 0% financing combined with the end-of-year deals, it makes it quite a time to make your way over there for those of you in the woodworking world and metalworking world, and with that showroom floor. And they don't work on commission, so you don't have to worry about any of that. It's open to the public. A lot of people don't realize that. So you can stop by, take a look for yourself. Place is awesome. And then they have catalogs, too. So even if it's just run in and grab it, that's Grizzly Industrial in Springfield. The toppling of the dictatorship in Syria is pretty significant. There are some who are equating it to, the fall of the Berlin Wall in terms of this could spur other movements in other countries in which you have attempts to take over regimes, though time will tell on that. Joe Biden speaking about it. Here are a couple of his comments yesterday.
Protecting any personnel, our personnel, against any threats, and remain our mission against ISIS will be maintained, including the security of detention facilities where ISIS fighters are being held as prisoners. These past few days have been historic. And, it's in the days ahead that will determine the future. We intend to approach them with strength, wisdom, and resolve.
Can't you hear it? Can't you feel the strength, the wisdom, and resolve? I mean, it sounds like he is falling asleep as he is speaking. He tried to also take credit for it, which, all right, whatever, Joe. On your way out. Biden's Department of Health and Human Services celebrated yet another LGBTQ plus holiday Sunday, paying homage to pansexual and pan-romantic Pride Day in a post on X. It's in pansexual, I mean you're not sexual? Is that what that means? I forget.
Well, according to the old Wikipedia, pansexuality is sexual, romantic, or emotional attraction towards people of all genders, or regardless of their sex or gender identity.
Okay.
They are gender blind, asserting that gender and or sex are not determining factors in their romantic or sexual attraction to others.
I thought it was wrong to be gender blind. To not recognize one.
Not unless you are a pansexual.
Okay, so that's like your so that's where you don't have to care?
I guess
like
so.
You're pansexual, you get the privilege of not having to memorize and worry about what a person's particular pronouns are. That may be something to look into. The Health and Human Services post read, "Today on Pansexual and Pan-Romantic Pride Day, everyone deserves to feel seen, respected, and supported no matter who they love. Create a world where everyone feels proud to be themselves." The post was met with many comments slamming the Biden administration's priorities and looking forward to the coming Trump administration in January. Quote, "At this point, I'm just confused. I have no idea what they even mean," Elon Musk responded. Senator-elect Jim Banks of Indiana, Republican, said, "Glad that this type of bull blank will end on January 20th. Can't come soon enough." Stephen Miller, who will serve as senior staff in the Trump administration, quote, "Sanity is returning to HHS in 43 days. Ali Beth Stuckey, conservative commentator, "I cannot wait for this degenerate embarrassment of an administration to end." Vivek Ramaswamy, "Switch this to lower health care cost day and we'd be making some progress. There are at least 28 LGBTQ plus holidays besides the entire month of June, which is, of course, Pride Month, several of which the Biden administration has acknowledged, including posting about Transgender Day of Visibility on Easter. The Biden administration, of course, openly advocating for children to have cosmetic surgeries, a.k.a. sex changes, hosted a Pride celebration at the White House, including a topless transgender activist and drag queens. Many officials within the Biden administration identify as LGBTQ+, including HHS Secretary Rachel Levine, a man who pretends to be a woman, and Sam Brinton, an openly gender fluid former Department of Energy official accused of stealing women's luggage. You know, when you recall 4 years ago, the great celebration was about how the adults were going to be back in charge. I mean, you just look at, aside from the moral component to it, just the lack of focus on things that should really truly be priorities for the administration. And this administration, whether it's holding, drag shows or having topless transgenders run around or leaving cocaine all over the White House or just spending their time focusing on pansexual, gender fluid, this and that and so forth. And then you observe Donald Trump, who's about getting meaningful things done, whether you agree with them or not. Things that are actually going to have positive impacts on the lives of all Americans, our economy, our national security, our border, and you really do get a sense of who the true adults are in the White House, and it is going to be. It's going to be so nice. I was thinking about this, how even these couple weeks before the end of the year, it just almost seems like you're on vacation or something, because it's going to get better. You know that things are going to start improving. Just the fact that we have somebody in the White House, or that will be back in the White House, who loves the country, whose number one priority is to make the country great again, and we move away from all of this other stuff that we've just been dredging ourselves through over the past 4 years. Oh, boy. Oh, so nice. Coming up, Donald Trump on Meet the Press. He talked about Christopher Wray, talked about January 6ers. He talked about the border. He talked about, you don't have to separate families when you deport them all together, and ending birthright citizenship. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk at text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Listing through the last 4 years, just some of the behavior of this current administration, and when Biden got elected, the theme was the adults are back in charge, and there's a story about how the Health and Human Services Department, which is run by a man who pretends to be a woman, and the celebration of pansexual and panromantic day, and you look back at some of the things that this administration did, instead of recognizing Easter, recognizing Transgenderism Day, having transgenders run around topless, men with breast implants around children, cocaine in the White House, and yet these were supposed to be the adults as opposed to Donald Trump. And one of you had texted in, yeah, but J.D. Vance is weird. I'm sure someone will put all of these things down in a book, but there are so many things that happened during this past election that you look at, and given that Trump won, you can laugh about him to some degree because we can recognize that there are enough adults voting that we didn't buy into it. But that whole attempt to make conservatives seem weird, to make it seem like Trump supporters are weird, to make it seem like J.D. Vance is weird when they have topless men with breast implants running around children on the White House lawn, when they can't identify what a man or a woman is, where they act as if it's perfectly normal to have pornography in elementary school libraries that children have access to. And they embarked on this campaign it's the ultimate gaslighting campaign, to, among other things, claim that J.D. Vance is weird and these conservatives are they're really, really weird. And there is strength in numbers, of course, and there's just something to be said about realizing that while you recognize you are normal, it's still nice to know that a majority of people in our country are seemingly normal as well, because you can be normal and still be surrounded with 90% of people who aren't normal, which arguably, relatively speaking, would make them the new normal. But it's just, I tell you, there are a lot of things about this election that occurred, aside from Trump winning, that I think was reassuring to a lot of Americans, and that whole what is defined as actually being weird is one of them. All right, we're going to get a traffic update, and then Trump talking about FBI Director Christopher Wray. He was asked yesterday on Meet the Press with Christian Welker whether or not he would fire Wray, and of course ask about separating families, pardoning the insurrectionists. He talks on all of that, and I'd say it was a pretty successful interview at that.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today it'll be cloudy with a high near 54. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 30. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny and breezy with a high near 41. And on Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 38.
Catch the iconic Legendary Sticks with special guest Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon Live, Thunder Ridge Nature Arena, Saturday, June 7th. It is down the road. However, we have your chance to win tickets before they go on sale, which will be this Friday at 10 a.m. You can register now at ksgf.com in order to potentially win a pair. And then, of course, like I said, they do go on sale at Friday morning. Meet the Press, number of different subject matters. Christopher Wray, acting director of the FBI, being one of them.
Are you going to fire the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, who you appointed?
Well, I can't say I'm thrilled with him. He invaded my home. I'm suing the country over it. He invaded Mar-a-Lago. I'm very unhappy with the things he's done. And crime is at an all-time high. Migrants are pouring into the country that are from prisons and from mental institutions, as we've discussed. I can't say I'm thrilled. I don't want to be Joe Biden and give you an answer and then do the exact opposite.
We're going to talk about
that. So I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is I certainly cannot be happy with him. You take a look at what's happened. And then when I was shot in the ear, he said, "Oh, maybe it was shrapnel." Where's the shrapnel coming from? Is it coming from heaven? I don't think so. So we need somebody to straighten. I have a lot of respect for the FBI, but the FBI's respect has gone way down over the last number of years.
Don't you have to fire him in order to make room for Kash Patel if he is in fact confirmed?
Well, I mean, it would sort of seem pretty obvious that if Kash gets in, he's going to be taking somebody's place, right? And somebody is the man that you're talking about.
And it is obvious that this is going to happen. I'm not sure in what world it would not happen. I wouldn't say he's necessarily being cagey about it, but it does seem pretty straightforward. Yeah, he's going to be fired. I mean, you already picked someone new to replace him. Some of the other discussion, these are questions coming from the perspective of the left, obviously, and part of that is the retribution. Now, you and I know. I mean, we've watched Trump be the focus of, the target of retribution, lawfare in numerous jurisdictions across this country. I mean, you had some of these individuals run specifically on getting Donald Trump for something. The Attorney General of New York being one of those individuals, saying, elect me and I will go after Donald Trump. Yet in the upside down world of the left, the country needs to worry about Trump going after political opposition to get retribution, and he was asked about that.
I'm really looking to make our country successful. I'm not looking to go back into the past. I'm looking to make our country successful. Retribution will be through success. If we can make this country successful, that would be my great achievement. Bring it back. We have a country now that's overridden with crime, that has millions of people that shouldn't be here, that should be in prisons in other countries, that should be in mental institutions. We have drug lords being dropped into our country and told never go back to their country. I'm looking to make our country great. I'm looking to bring prices down.
And, of course, part of all of that as well, and he talks to some extent on being elected for two different things. One of them is the economy, and he specifically talked about the grocery stores. The other, the border. And a majority of people support deportations. Some polls show a majority of the American people support mass deportation. Now, the challenge that Trump is going to have is the visuals of law enforcement, or he's talked about utilizing National Guard potentially if needed. I don't think that that will happen. And you've had some, like Senator Rand Paul, who have said that's not a good idea because just seeing the images of crying babies and families being pulled apart. The media would love nothing more than to be able to project those images on television because they desperately want to prevent Donald Trump from being successful at securing the border, and they desperately want the American people not to side with him on this. They're on the losing side of this battle, and so having those sort of images are something that they are definitely going to hope that they can utilize in order to try to sway public opinion on this. But as it stands now, the American people support this. But these questions are already being asked, and they are valid questions because it is easy to say, yes, we're going to deport people. That's a lot easier than when it starts to get a little bit messy. And so some of the discussion, particularly deporting everyone, this is they can't wrap their mind around this. You're going to deport every single individual who's in this country illegally?
Your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years.
Well, I think you have to do it. And it's a very tough thing to do. You know, rules, regulations, laws, they came in illegally. You know, the people that have been treated very unfairly are the people that have been online for 10 years to come into the country. And we're going to make it very easy for people to come in terms of they have to pass the test. They have to be able to tell you what the Statue of Liberty is. They have to tell you a little bit about our country. They have to love our country. They can't come out of prisons. We don't want people that are in for murder. Murderers released into our country over the last 3 years. They're walking down the streets. They're walking next to you and your family, and they're very dangerous.
The 13.
All right, coming up, the same subject matter. He talks about the separation of families, and then there is a question about January Sixers as well, and whether or not he will pardon them. His approach on that. This is his interview yesterday on NBC's Meet the Press. Streaming live, KSGF.com, also on YouTube. That, thanks to Springfield Raps, designer of the KSGF studios. Separating families. Now, this is something that is an emotional trigger point that the media believes that they can use in order to try and turn public sentiment around. And let's not forget, and many of you will remember, that it was the Clinton administration that targeted one single child in Florida named Elian Gonzalez. This is someone who, I believe it was his mother, fled Cuba with him. I believe she died in the process, but he made it to land, and her family was in Florida. She was trying to escape the horrors of communism, and Democrats demanded that that child be sent back to Castro's Cuba. They sent armed men with weapons of war in to literally pry Elian Gonzalez, who was a young boy at the time, from the arms of a family member. There's that iconic photo. You don't see this photo floating around so much any longer, in which you had, again, someone with a weapon of war finding Elian clinging to what I believe was his uncle while they were hiding in a closet. This is in America. And the Democrats defended it. So, you know, this whole notion that they, as a party, are fundamentally opposed to any sort of immigration policy that might result in separating families is all political. Trump was asked about the separation of families as part of his border policies.
We estimated 4 million families in America who have mixed immigration status. So I'm talking about parents who might be here illegally, but the kids are here legally. Your borders are...
You're talking about separation?
Yeah, well, there are two aspects to this. Your border czar, Tom Homan, said they can be deported together. Is that the plan?
Well, you keep well, I don't want to be breaking up families. So the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together and you have to send them all back.
And yeah, I mean, what is cruel about that? Keeping the family intact. You know, there's another aspect of all of this that has long gotten ignored, and that is whenever we find these children, and there was one, I believe, 2 years old, a little girl just recently, and she was just sent here. She was by herself, and this is not uncommon. These children get sent here so that they can then sort of secure the family's place in the country, or perhaps the family is already here and then they pay human smugglers in order to get that child here into the United States. And the position from our government has been, well, we want to reunite them with their families. Why? We live in a country in which, still, this happened just a couple of weeks ago, a mother was arrested because her son was walking to the park or to downtown or something. I mean, just not even a half a mile from the home. But we are intent on reuniting children with parents who pay sex smugglers to get them into this country illegally. People that oftentimes they just find on the internet. You think about the double standard that we have in this country when it comes to the government's perceptive or their perceptions as to how it is that government should step in to protect children from parents, whether it's children that are going for long bike rides or children that are walking by themselves to the park and somebody sees this 5-year-old 3/4 of a mile away, and so then they call police, and then the police show up at the house, and then they arrest the mother, they arrest the father, and they have to go through these parenting plans. But if you are someone who pays a sex smuggler to take your 3-year-old child thousands and thousands of miles through a couple of different countries in order to drop them off in the desert in the United States, our number one priority is to make sure they get back with that parent. I'm not saying that we should, start some new program where all of a sudden now we take that responsibility upon ourselves. But that is the result of the policies that have been put in place by the Biden administration. What sort of insane approach is that to, one, create those conditions, but two, then after you create those conditions in which parents treat their children that way, putting their lives in danger, and we're like, number one priority is we got to make sure we get them back with those parents because we don't want to separate parents from kids. It's insanely upside down. It is also, incidentally, one of the many reasons that the kids in cages, as it was called, was something that was a policy because there was recognition that so many of these young children weren't actually with what the person claimed to be, and that was they'd say that, here's you got some tatted up young guy who, is clearly, visually, someone that you would imagine to be in a gang, and he's got 18 kids in tow with him, claiming that they're all his. And so there were efforts to make sure that those children, it did not get smuggled into this country by someone who's going to sell them into sex slavery, which, of course, with the reversal of those policies, have resulted in hundreds of thousands of children disappearing. And we're told that that is the compassionate. Even the questioning of Trump. Here, you got Meet the Press questioning Trump about separating kids from their families. And all of the questions are aimed in order to paint Trump's policies as cold-hearted. Yet they don't give two licks about the hundreds of thousands of kids who have disappeared in this country. And it's because, like everything else with the left, it isn't about saving kids. It isn't about immigration. It's not about illegal immigration. It's about how can this particular subject matter be used as a weapon against political opposition. There's a story, I find this story about whistleblowers that no one in the media is paying much attention to, and how one of these housing centers, you have a tremendous amount of sexual abuse in which these children who are being brought into this country illegally are the victims of, and yet there's no outrage. I'll have to find, I believe I printed off this story. I want to say it was in Massachusetts, or it wasn't a so-called border state, if I remember correctly. But this isn't the first time that this has happened in this administration, in which you have people who were, part of the system, who have either gotten out of the system or they have been whistleblowers, talking about the rampant sexual abuse against kids at these facilities. No outrage. No Ocasio-Cortez flying on the taxpayer dime down to cry outside one of these facilities. A few weeks ago, it was acknowledged by the Biden administration that they were funneling kids to a strip joint, and then admitted that they didn't know where the kids were. No outrage. Because the kids are only weapons to be used against political opposition. And the moment that they are in any sort of horrific predicament that might reflect poorly on their approach, they ignore it. And the fact that all of these questions are being asked of Donald Trump in a way that is supposed to paint his policies as somehow being cruel, his policies as creating victims of young children, when they do not care about the tragedies that so many hundreds of thousands of these young people are experiencing because of the current policies in place. He talks about birthright citizenship as well. I'll have that audio, plus his plan for those who are, January 6ers. I did find that story, and it's one that should be more of a focus of someone like Kirsten Welker of NBC as she sits down with Donald Trump, meet the press. And I don't think she was nearly as outrageous as oftentimes the media is, but it's the whole perspective of the illegal immigration policies and how the lens of Donald Trump's policies, what he wants to put into place, are somehow cruel. Yet what's going on as a result of the Biden policies really, truly, genuinely are cruel, yet there's no concern. And there's a Fox News story. A former director at a Massachusetts migrant shelter is speaking out against what he says were incidents of widespread violence, child sexual assault, and rape at shelters in the state, including an incident where a father impregnated his 14-year-old daughter. Massachusetts, which is a sanctuary state, has been one of a number of states that have been overwhelmed by the illegal surge coming across the southern border. That state spending nearly $1.1 billion of taxpayer dollars this fiscal year to house and feed border crossers who have often been placed in hotels converted into shelters. One such migrant shelter in Marlborough, Massachusetts, was managed by John Featherston from November of 23 to July of this year, who painted a chaotic picture of his time there with violence, wasteful spending, and rape, saying there was a lot of violence. Unfortunately, there was a gentleman in the hotel that impregnated his own daughter and got very violent when the state removed her from the shelter, separating families. A Maine Wire report from June appears to corroborate the claim, reporting that illegal immigrant Ronald Joseph allegedly raped his 14-year-old daughter numerous times on the journey to the U.S., both before and after crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. The Department of Children and Families interviewed the young girl before making the decision to remove her from her father's custody on an emergency basis, the document obtained by the Maine Wire states. Joseph was then given a taxpayer-funded Lyft ride to another state, or to another shelter, rather, in Worcester, Massachusetts, after he started yelling and making threatening gestures at the shelter staff, the Maine Wire reported. And that it goes into detail, the whistleblower who ran that facility, about other instances of horrific chaos and violence. But to the point, we're told that sanctuary states, that is somehow a compassionate policy when these are the results. We've got news coming up in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Happy Monday to y'all. Just want to let Nick know that no thanks to him, I have that Billy Long song stuck in my head. I think President Trump keeps him around for entertainment. Just saying, have a wonderful weekend. Oh, that's my songwriting abilities have really touched someone. Yeah, it is a good song. It's a very good song. KSGF.com, we have a number of different things to keep in mind. One of them, Christmas in the Ozarks. And this is a listing of all the different area parades and the light displays, places to see Santa. It's brought to you by our friends at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. So you can get any and all of that information there and get yourself registered. Sticks with special guest Kevin Cornyn of REO Speedwagon is going to be at Thunder Ridge Nature Arena Saturday, June 7th. Those tickets go on sale Friday at 10 a.m., and you can register to win before you can buy at KSGF.com. Last couple bits of audio. Birthright citizenship. Trump has spoken in the past about his belief that this needs to end, and he was asked about that.
You promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action?
We're going to have to get a change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it.
Executive action.
You know, we're the only country that has it. You know, if somebody sets just a foot, 1 foot, you don't need two, on our land. Congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, we're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action. I was going to do it through executive action, but then we had to fix COVID first, to be honest with you. We have to end it.
You know, and I don't know if this is deliberate, but Trump has managed to... They're trying to, I believe, trap him by getting him to specifically say exactly how he's going to accomplish some of his goals. That way they can pick apart his inability to do it. So in other words, by executive action, she's asking, and I think what she's wanting is for him to say yes, and then they can have constitutional scholars on to explain why that can't happen, and so that way they can run this, propaganda about how he cannot do what it is that he wants to do. But he's being very smart and saying, well, whatever way we can do it, we're going to look at that, we're going to figure it out. Now, Mike Lee, the GOP senator from Utah, notes that NBC selectively omitted key words from the 14th Amendment in that interview. He shared a clip of the exchange on X yesterday, rebuking the NBC host for omitting 6 critical words from the 14th Amendment in her question to Trump. All persons born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof shall be citizens of the United States. He notes that those words matter. He continued to break down the issue in a lengthy 12-part thread, noting that Congress has the power to define what it means to be born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. While current law contains no such restriction, Congress could pass a law defining what it means to be born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, excluding prospectively from birthright citizenship individuals born in the U.S. to illegal aliens. And so Mike Lee's argument there is that while the 14th Amendment is being used to define this issue, key words are being left out in this particular exchange, Welker of CNN, or NBC rather, that means that there could be some redefining, if you will, by Congress itself. And then finally, January 6th pardons. This is a big one. Many people not wondering exactly if, but it's more of an issue of when.
I'm going to look at everything. We're going to look at individual cases, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to be acting very quickly.
Within your first 100 days, first day?
First day.
First day.
Yeah, I'm looking first day.
Issue these pardons.
These people have been there, how long is it? 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
By the way, they've been in there for years, and they're in a filthy, disgusting place that shouldn't even be allowed to be open.
The media, of course, has painted all of the people who sit in jail or in prison as insurrectionists that tried to, and in some instances, killed police officers. Of course, we know that their characterization is untrue. The approach that I would take, if I'm Trump, I would put it in the context of comparing the punishment of his supporters that were in or around the Capitol on January 6th to past individuals who illegally trespassed in the Capitol on on any other instance, like the Kavanaugh hearings, for example. Or you had trans activists last week invade the women's bathroom within the Capitol. Now, are they going to get the same treatment as the January 6ers? You do have within those individuals that were in the Capitol on January 6th, some that did lash out in violence, that did physically assault police officers. Well, on average in this country, when somebody assaults a police officer, how much time do they get? I think that framing it in that manner, that any individual who has been disproportionately punished compared to others will be individuals that get pardons, that will make sense to people. Because you have a number of individuals out there who, in this country, who do believe that every one of those individuals, they violently assaulted police officers, and they don't know, one, that a majority of the individuals in the Capitol that day did not do that, but they also don't realize that the disproportionate punishment that is being used against Trump supporters versus anyone else in this country. And framing it in that context, I think for those people will make sense. Speaking of pardons, Bill Clinton was asked at a recent event about the pardon situation with Hunter Biden. And I find it very interesting that you have a number of these people in which comparisons are being made, and in the listing of pardons of the past, Bill Clinton gets caught up in there. You have those who are defending Joe Biden's corruption and his protecting of Hunter Biden and even crimes that haven't been discovered yet, with Bill Clinton pardoning his brother. And Bill Clinton wants people to know very clearly these are two very, very different situations. We'll have that audio in just a couple of moments. Also, the latest look at the weather right now, news.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it'll be cloudy skies with a high near 54. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 30. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny and breezy with a high near 41. And on Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 38.
I just love watching this footage of Trump over in Europe and all of these world leaders that are going out of their way to shake his hand, smiling with him real big. Who knew, especially in Europe, Hitler would receive such a warm welcome that you would have so many European leaders and royalty that desperately wanted to be seen shaking hands and smiling with Hitler.
Making friends with a dictator.
I know. I mean, it's just crazy. If that doesn't put on full display the complete lie that the people in this country in particular and the media knew that they were telling, frightening people into believing that Donald Trump was Hitler. All of these, and Kamala Harris, all of these world leaders, I mean, they're just secretly laughing at us. They hate Donald Trump. They worry about Donald Trump being president of the United States. Now, let me tell you, you can make the argument, well, now that he's elected, they have no choice. You can tell by body language. You can tell by facial expressions that these are not mere pleasantries that are being made only because Donald Trump is going to become president once again in this country. You can tell that. You can sense, you can see it in the body language. You can see it in the interactions that they have a level of respect for Trump, that they are, in some instances, actually enjoying having conversations with Donald Trump. This is not the Hitler the left claimed Donald Trump was. Coming up, Bill Clinton pushing back, making sure people know the Hunter Biden pardon is not comparable to his decision to pardon his half-brother Roger. Also, Joe Scarborough having a meltdown in which he just goes on a rant and yells at his own viewers. I guess that's one interesting way to approach it. Wilder RV end-of-year deals just a little over an hour north on 13 of Springfield in Clinton, Missouri. And specials for winterizing that vehicle, making sure that it is ready to be put up so that, more importantly, it is ready to take out again once the nicer weather makes it back into the area months down the road, but nonetheless, it will occur. And like I said, they've got some great end-of-the-year deals as well, maybe whether that is an upgrading or you are looking for the first time. Buy yourself a Christmas gift going into the new year, an RV, live the life. No better place to start than Wilder RV. You can find them wilderrv.com, also ksgf.com, Nick's endorsements. Bill Clinton at a speaking engagement. This was at the New York Times Deal Book Summit, and he was asked about the pardon of Hunter Biden by Joe Biden.
This was not on my plan originally, but I thought, you know what? Everybody, we were out in the hallway, they were all talking about that, and I said, I'm going to ask the president first.
Well, I think that the president did have reason to believe that the nature of the offenses involved were likely to produce far stronger adverse consequences for his son than they would for any normal person under the same circumstances. But I would urge all of you to just look at the facts before you make a judgment and see what they're talking about and what the context is. Because I'm still reading, somebody said, well, this is just like when Bill Clinton pardoned his brother. Well, it's not. My brother did 14 months in the federal prison for something he did when he was 20. And I supported it. And he testified, told the truth about what he'd done when he had a drug problem and helped to bring down a larger enterprise.
The way that the Biden supporters are handling this is as predicted, because it's the way that the left handles everything. They deny it, then they justify it. This is standard approach of the left. Deny, deny, deny until they're caught, because either the truth prevails or the truth becomes unavoidable. But instead of saying, yeah, we were wrong, or, well, we weren't exactly being truthful, they pretend as if they never denied it, and instead they justify it. So when Joe Biden claimed that he would not under any circumstances, and Karine Jean-Pierre, and she got ad nauseum, she got very annoyed that she continued to get asked this. She says, I don't know how many times I can say this. He is not going to pardon Hunter Biden. He will not be pardoning him. There will be no pardons. I remember playing the audio. She was just exhausted with answering this question, and Joe Biden himself, over and over and over again. And the people in the media praised him, and they held him up, and other Democrats noted this is what makes him different than a dictator Hitler like Donald Trump, who tries to protect his family, that Joe Biden has respect for the rule of law, that Joe Biden has respect for the judicial system, and that he is doing what George Washington would have done. I mean, there were comparisons to George Washington. Those very same people are the ones that are now justifying it. And part of how they justify it is to say, well, everybody else does it too. And one of the everybody else's that they're pointing to is Bill Clinton pardoning his half-brother Roger. But as Bill Clinton noted here, these are much different circumstances. While Joe Biden, though he didn't go specifically into this, but what Joe Biden did was pardon Hunter so he serves no time, he suffers no punishment, not only for crimes that he has already been found guilty of, but in addition to any other crimes that he may have been committed, but he hasn't been caught on yet over the past decade, which of course kicks in when he started on the Burisma board in Ukraine. So this is far different. It's also far different from the pardon of Donald Trump's daughter's father-in-law. This is another example that the left likes to use in order to try and justify Joe Biden's behavior. Well, not only does Donald Trump pardon a member of his family through marriage, but he's also making him the ambassador to France. Well, again, this was an individual who got in trouble because he was making illegal campaign contributions to Democrats, by the way, and then served his time in prison. This was from back in the early 2000s. So the pardon, whether it is of Bill Clinton's brother or it is Donald Trump's daughter's father-in-law, are not pardons that alleviated them from paying the price. It did not do anything when it came to their punishment because they had already served the sentences. And additionally, neither Bill Clinton for his brother Roger or Donald Trump for his daughter's father-in-law pardoned for crimes that haven't yet been discovered. So even their attempt to justify the corruption of the Biden administration is not an accurate portrayal of what actually happened in those cases. But again, with the left, it's, they deny. He won't do it, he won't do it, he won't do it. And then they justify. And even at that, they do it very poorly. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. MSNBC, specifically Joe Scarborough, still suffering the repercussions of he and Mika's little visit with Donald Trump. And their fan base, if you want to call it that, has continued to lash out and they've continued to lose numbers as well. And this has caused Joe Scarborough to believe that the best approach to getting those viewers back is to yell at them through the television screen. So he's having a bit of a mental breakdown. We'll have that audio coming up. A traffic update now. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have cloudy skies with a high near 54. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 30. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny and breezy with a high near 41. And on Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 38.
Joe Scarborough continuing the slow train wreck that has become his career at MSNBC itself is just, it is one dumpster fire, one giant dumpster fire between Al Sharpton taking $250,000 checks for his organization from Kamala Harris before he did that interview with her, MSNBC claiming they had no idea that he was taking money from her. Joe and Mika deciding after Trump got elected, after warning that he was Hitler, that he was going to throw them in concentration camps, they went to sit and visit with him, which is a weird thing to do if you really truly believe that you are going to be murdered by an individual. If you really truly believe someone is going to be a dictator and that they are going to, and Scarborough has made claims in that effect, that Trump would assassinate political opposition. They continue to suffer fallout amongst many of their viewers because of this. I mean, we're a couple weeks past this, but they continue to do poorly in the ratings, and they continue to get all sorts of backlash from people on the left, portraying them as traitors, portraying them as liars, portraying them as groveling and kissing the ring of Donald Trump, some of the very verbiage that has been used, to the point that once again, Joe Scarborough has gone back to revisit his reasons for it, which include yelling at his viewers.
Two things. You can do two things at the same time. You can say he had fascist rhetoric and still go in and talk to him. Yeah. You know why I do that? To get the read of the man. You know why I went in and talked to Macron? To get the read of the man at a crucial time in EU funding and NATO funding. Do you know why I went to leaders in the Middle East who were angry at the United States, and I sat there and I listened to them attacking me personally for 45 minutes because of U.S. policy? You know why I do that? To get the read of the leader, to get the read of where the country's going. So I can come back here and talk to you and let you know what the hell is going on.
With context and insight.
Give you context, insight, and background. You know everybody we have on the show that's a reporter? It's what they do every day. They speak on background.
Now, I don't personally believe that this is a winning strategy to try and stop the hemorrhaging of your viewers, to try and win those back who have left by yelling at them in a condescending way, explaining to them that even if it is an enemy who hates the United States, you have to sit down and talk with them. Don't you idiots understand this? By the way, where was Joe Scarborough to defend Tucker Carlson when he sat down and interviewed Putin? Remember that whole fiasco? You had this universal voice of condemnation that Tucker Carlson was giving a platform to an enemy of the United States. He was a puppet of Putin. Now the same Joe Scarborough is talking about the importance of sitting down with the enemy to understand where they're coming from. These people have absolutely no moral compass outside of what they feel is going to help them in the moment. The contradictions in their words and their actions, their contradictions as to what they do versus what others do, and they defend themselves doing it, but if others do it, it's indefensible. They've gotten themselves into quite a mess over there. And here's the thing. I don't think that there is a thing they can do in order to repair the damage that has been done. They didn't have a tremendous amount of viewership anyhow. I mean, MSNBC, along with CNN, are networks that just do not have most of their viewership, I would argue, is when clips of their shows are being shown on other networks. So they get viewed on the 5, they get viewed on, or on radio programs nationally. Obviously, a much bigger footprint than a local station would have. But I suspect that that probably the majority of the people who hear what they say are hearing it because others are talking about it. So the show base itself was already small, but sometimes you paint yourself into a corner that you cannot get out of. If you have created an audience who demands to be told Donald Trump is evil, Donald Trump is Hitler, Donald Trump is going to be the end of democracy as we know it, they believe you. You can't then, or even if they don't believe you, they like to hear all of those horrible things said about him. It satisfies this need that they emotionally have inside. Well, you can't then tell that exact same audience, oh, by the way, we're going to sit down with this guy, we're going to talk with him so that we can get a better understanding of who he is, when you have been claiming to know who he is all this time, and that is Hitler. That audience is not going to go along with that. They feel betrayed by you. On the flip side, if the hope is to write off those losses with a disproportionate amount of new audience that comes along because they think that you're being objective and fair, that's not going to work either, because you just have absolutely no credibility. You're not going to suddenly win over people to MSNBC, specifically to the Joe Scarborough, Morning Joe, because, they're not going to abandon the places that they go for news because you suddenly are portraying yourself as somebody who's willing to sit down and talk with Donald Trump, largely because the fact that you're doing that is a destructive destructive to your own credibility, because you are defying what it is that you have claimed about Donald Trump in the past. There's a lot of gaming here in which there are attempts to, figure out, well, what can they do? What can MSNBC do? What should Joe Scarborough do in order to try and redeem himself and stop the hemorrhaging of viewers? And sometimes you create, though, a situation in which there's nothing you can do. And I believe that's where MSNBC is. And it's not just MSNBC. When you had Jeff Bezos come out and note that they were going to no longer endorse a presidential candidate at the Washington Post because they want to earn back credibility, that's not going to do it. These are deep-seated generational problems. And when you hire people who have a bias that they are unable to emotionally control, and they don't see it as a bias, they see it as the absolute God-given truth, their opinion, their thought, and so it is incumbent upon them that they are negligent in doing their job if they don't warn about how horrible Donald Trump is, if they don't warn about how dangerous Donald Trump supporters are. They feel as if they're not doing their job, and as long as that culture exists, doing these symbolic moves of not having endorsements any longer or sitting down and having a conversation with Donald Trump is not going to suddenly shift the perception of the media as suddenly fair and honest. But the fact that Joe Scarborough still 2-3 weeks after the initial meltdown of his viewers because of that meeting he and Mika had with Donald Trump, he's still having to address this in an emotionally angry way, just shows you how devastating that has been to his reputation. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. A1 Custom Car Care, all of your car care needs, especially getting into these colder nights when it makes it that much more difficult if your battery is not up to snuff to turn over to get your vehicle going. Of course, you have defrost is a very important component also when it comes to being able to safely drive. You've got issues with fluids, with belts, with hoses that can arise because of the disproportionately cold temperatures compared to what you get the rest of the year. And just like any other substance, harsh temperatures can cause problems to arise that otherwise would not. And that's why oftentimes we see these problems arise during winter. So I recommend that you find out by preemptively taking your vehicle in A1 Custom Car Care, have them go over it for you instead of finding out when it's dark outside and it's 5:30 in the morning and it's sleeting and it's 12 degrees and then your car doesn't start. Not nearly as fun. A1 Custom Car Care, all of your car care needs. It is, to me, the finger pointing that has been occurring as Democrats grapple with their loss seems to be dragging on a bit longer than is the standard. And I don't know if that is an accurate sense, but we just increasingly see more and more of these stories pop up in which you have the Democrats continuing to turn on one another in the context of the election. And the latest are allegations from black Kamala Harris staffers saying that they were mistreated on the campaign, blaming leadership for taking the base for granted, and saying that they were subject to racism. Some of the black Harris staffers accusing the campaign leadership of mistreatment and, quote, outright racial discrimination in a damning new article outlining numerous allegations against the now defunct campaign. The New York Times published a story yesterday titled, "How Alarmed Harris Staffers Went Rogue to Reach Black and Latino Voters." The story details a clandestine operation by some campaign staffers who ignored directives from the top and took matters into their own hands after feeling frustrated by the campaign's lack of sufficient effort to reach voters, specifically of color, in the city of Philadelphia. The Times story reads, many staff members felt that Philadelphia's racially diverse neighborhoods were ignored, adding that black campaign staff members and political operatives said campaign leadership dismissed concern that Democrats were taking their base for granted. As the election drew closer, the frustration with campaign leadership on the issue reached a boiling point, according to more than 30 staffers interviewed by the New York Times. Quote, after Ms. Harris's loss, black campaign employees set up a call to talk about career opportunities with Angela Rye, a political strategist and podcast host. The discussion quickly shifted as they shared their anger at how the campaign had treated them and how underfunded and haphazard their field operation had been in several battleground states, according to a recording of the call obtained by the Times. Some staffers were also reportedly peeved that the campaign did not hire enough people of color or contract with consulting firms that had black or Latino owners. The Times story cites staff members who allege that many campaign offices in Philadelphia were, quote, filthy and lacked basic supplies like tables, chairs, cleaning products, and printers. Some campaign offices targeting predominantly black communities were moved to upscale areas far from the areas they were assigned to serve, according to the Times. The Harris campaign reportedly commissioned an internal survey which concluded that black staff members were frustrated with campaign leaders and felt that their ideas were ignored at a rate far higher than their peers. Some complained of outright racial discrimination. The campaign's leadership was made aware of the survey results, the New York Times posted. Staffers were reportedly afraid to leak the allegations to the press for fear of ruining future job prospects. The Times cited an all-staff call after the election hosted by Quentin Fulks, the principal deputy campaign manager, who allegedly told staffers that talking to the media would hurt their careers. Harris campaign spokeswoman Lauren Hitt reportedly denied that Fulks had used that language or tone on the call and said that he had instead counseled staff members against saying something in a moment of anger that could come to hurt themselves or the vice president, the Times noted. The article features Quentin James, founder of the Collective PAC, a group that focuses on black elected officials and voters that worked with the Harris campaign, who revealed frantic staff members in Philadelphia, Detroit, North Carolina calling him in the final weeks of the race to say they didn't have enough money to provide food or water to volunteers. Well, it was all going to Oprah. It was all going to the celebrities. I just love the picturing of this, the framing that here the Harris campaign, the compassionate left that falsely portrayed Republicans in Georgia of creating laws to make it illegal to give people water. Meanwhile, one of the big complaints here from minority-run offices in the Harris campaign is that while, you've got millions and millions and millions of dollars being thrown around to celebrities, to influencers, they are calling to complain that they don't have any food or water to even give their volunteers because of the lack of money. The Times wrote, still, Harris campaign leaders seemed in denial about the situation, specifically in Philadelphia. Late on election night, Jen O'Malley Dillon, the campaign chair, wrote an all-staff email saying that the Harris campaign had overperformed turnout expectations there, especially in areas with non-white voters. But it was Trump who actually overperformed with key demographics in Pennsylvania, improving his numbers in predominantly black and Latino areas, which helped him win the critical battleground state and ultimately the presidency on election night. Harris, by contrast, netted more than 30,000 less votes in Philadelphia than Biden did in 2020. Some Democratic operatives and campaign staffers still disagree on whether it was voter outreach that fell short with people of color or a lack of relatable messaging by the candidate. Kellen White, a senior advisor to the Harris campaign in Pennsylvania, told the New York Times this campaign did more in Philadelphia to reach black and Latino voters than any campaign has done in a long time. The issue is not that we didn't knock on those doors. We knocked on a ton of doors. The problem was that the message itself didn't connect. And that's what we as a party need to try and spend our time and energy understanding why, when we knocked these doors, what we had to say didn't resonate with enough voters. Former Harris campaign staffers did not respond to a Fox News Digital request for comments on the New York Times story. Sometimes you have a situation in which everything is wrong. This fight over whether it was a poorly run campaign or whether it was a poorly marketed campaign or whether the odds were just against them because people, quote, didn't understand how good they had it, all of these things were coming into play. Even if you had a fantastic candidate, the odds would still have been against that individual because of the fact that inflation was something that was harming people. And they began losing that argument. They began losing this race, whether it would be Biden or Harris, the moment they decided to try and tell people that inflation was transitory, that it wasn't a serious issue, that it was something that wasn't really affecting you, and that you do not understand all of the wonderful things that Joe Biden was doing. That was when they began losing that election. It would not matter how cognitively sharp Joe Biden could have been or should have been. It doesn't make any difference whether or not Kamala Harris was a bad candidate or a good candidate. The reality was already working against them, and the fact that they denied reality as long as they possibly could, whether it was inflation or claiming that the border was secure, all of these things combined with Harris being a horrible candidate, lacking any sort of leadership, and having a history of bombing when it comes to these national elections, all of that combined contributed to the historic loss that she experienced. But it couldn't happen to a better campaign. Now you have black staffers and Latino staffers claiming that they weren't listened to because they were people of color, while people who were white individuals, their ideas were listened to a greater degree by the Harris campaign than theirs were. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. News in 60 seconds, I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. The Republicans need to show videos of the Syrian takeover of their government to Democrats explain January 6th was not an insurrection. Yes, this is what an insurrection looks like. That is a very good point. If you want to get some visuals of what an actual insurrection is, watch what is happening in Syria. You got the now former leader of Syria, dictator, fleeing to a foreign country for his life. You have people in the back of pickup trucks with military weaponry. You have what one would recognize as a legit insurrection. And so in order to perhaps maybe Liz Cheney and Nancy Pelosi and all of these media outlets that are covering an actual insurrection can sort of get a better grasp on what happened on January 6th when it comes to the insurrection labeling of it. And this in Syria, that is what an insurrection looks like. Not police opening a door and waving individuals in and roping off the pathway so everyone knows where to go. Not police officers taking selfies with individuals. That's what the vast majority of activity on January 6th was. A little different than what's happening in Syria, where you can see what an insurrection really does look like. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, for all of your home buying needs, your home selling needs. She's very busy this time of year because a lot of folks wanting to get those deals done and taken care of, but she still has time for you. If you have any questions about buying or selling a home, or you know someone who's moving into the area and need a trusted realtor that is going to guide them through the process, help them out, and really make sure that the experience is best as possible, then you recommend, as I do, for all home buying needs, home selling needs, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. I believe we'll be chatting with Congressman Burleson coming up here in just a couple of moments. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see cloudy skies with a high near 54. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 30. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny and breezy with a high near 41. And on Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 38.
Another text message talking earlier in the program about the reception Donald Trump was receiving from world leaders over in Europe, and how odd it is that they all warmly, with big smiles on their faces, embracing Hitler as they are. And there was a message that came in saying, "Good morning, Nick and Sarah. This is your old friend Bill from Pittsburgh, Missouri. I was listening to your show. You were talking about how happy the people in Europe and other countries are that President Trump is over there. Really, the truth be known, nobody just has to watch Biden anymore. So now they can actually focus on actual duties. Have a great day." That probably is about a significant amount of relief. We found out that one of those more recent visits to Europe, they essentially were handing off duties to one another to, sort of corral him, keep him focused. So the fact that as a country, we no longer have to rely on world leaders of other countries to be a babysitter for our president of the United States, that probably is a bit of a relief, not just in the moment, but in the overall concept of having the United States being run by someone who has to have a babysitter. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. Going to talk with Congressman Burleson in mere moments. First, Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Well, I spoke with Josh over at the Pyramid Roofing Company on Friday, and one thing that he really wanted to relay to listeners is these crazy temperature swings that we are having right now. That can often lead to a lot of repairs when it comes to your roof. With the thawing and then the freezing again, that can actually lead to nail pops and actually shifting in your shingles. So if you have an older roof, now is actually a really good time to go ahead and schedule a free roof inspection with the Pyramid Roofing Company, especially before we get into that colder winter weather. The Pyramid team, they do those free roof inspections. They'll come out, they'll give you an upfront and honest review, and then they'll get you scheduled and get you on the books and get everything all taken care of. It's as simple as that. So if it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company team out at your home, go ahead and give Josh a call today. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Congressman Burleson joins us this morning, and appreciate you being here with us. And we were talking earlier, just interested to get your thoughts in the warm reception that Donald Trump has been receiving over in Europe. Even Jill Biden seemed to be almost taken by him, the way that she was making eyes at him. In fact, he's using that as a digital ad for his new perfume cologne line.
I'll have to look at that.
Oh yeah, it's great. What does it say? What did it say, Sarah?
Oh no, you put me on the spot. Hold on, let me pull it up.
All right, because I didn't even know he had a cologne and a perfume line, but he does. And
Enemies can't resist.
Yes, enemies can't resist, and it's a picture of her making googly eyes at him over there in Europe.
Yeah, they're all lining up to kiss the ring. Right.
Well, and
and it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to watch all these crazy elitist leaders, line up to kiss the ring.
Well, especially given the history of Hitler. I mean, it's just such a odd welcoming. And the thing of it is, some people can write it off and claim, well, they're just doing that because he was elected president and they feel like they have to. You can tell there is a genuine warmth that some of them are you can tell in the body language. It's just much different. And I think even though maybe they aren't necessarily, he's their number one pick, the fact that there is someone that they can actually deal with and have conversations with, and they know who's in charge. They haven't known who's in charge for the last 4 years.
Where the lights are on upstairs.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that by itself, go ahead.
I think that I gave a speech yesterday to the Springfield Korean Association, which is actually a really large group of people. I was really impressed. But in the speech, I basically said that every country that's not a dictatorship, that's corrupt, regime, wants a strong United States. South Korea, Japan, Europe. They want a strong United States because a strong United States means there's peace throughout the rest of the world. And the economy, we pivot the entire economy around the world. So I think that while in his first administration, they were all about these other things like the climate and all these things. But I think what happens is when you see the world set on fire through war and conflict, then the climate kind of takes a back seat. Instead, it's their attitude is, relief that somebody's going to come in and stabilize the world.
Well, and I think we forget oftentimes how vocal some of our allies were in their disappointment, to put it mildly, of Afghanistan. Just not even the result of it, but the fact that so many of them were caught off guard. They weren't given a heads up, and many of those countries also had troops in Afghanistan, and then they find out that this disastrous pullout is occurring. There was condemnation. There was a vote in Parliament. condemning Joe Biden's action on that. In France, the question was asked, I thought the adults were back in charge. What happened with one of the leadership members in France? And so, they've done such a good job to some degree of washing all that away, and of course during the campaign portraying Joe Biden as this, as this individual that the rest of the world just loves so greatly. And there were real tangible things that were done that burned a lot of those bridges very early on.
That's right. And they saw the disaster that Joe Biden, that he was. So I think there's a great documentary that touches on the Afghanistan withdrawal that from all places you can watch on the Disney Plus.
Oh, really?
Because, yeah, it's about, I think it's done by Nature, but it's about or National Geographic, and it tells the story from the inside of the, the military and them leaving. And it is a gut-wrenching story. It reminds me of Benghazi.
Right. We are talking with Congressman Burleson. An announcement made last week that seemed to surprise a lot of people was the nomination of Billy Long to be commissioner of the IRS. And it's interesting because I think part of there was just this exploration, I think. I know I had a lot of people say to me, why was Billy Long chosen? And then I think that it also highlighted the fact that a lot of people don't really actually even know what the commissioner of the IRS does, because that was a question too. So what are your thoughts on the whole, that appointment, and just your thoughts and what feedback you're hearing, if any, on it?
So I knew that Billy was being considered for multiple positions. One of them was the ambassador to Japan. When Billy was a member of Congress, he created a relationship with Japan and visited there often, and he was basically a celebrity.
I would much rather have that job than the commissioner of the IRS.
But the other thing that people often don't know about Billy is that he is a bulldog on the IRS, and he, the 2 years that he's been out, he has been an advocate for people in the private sector as a consultant, helping people navigate the IRS. And I know, because every time I would talk with Billy, he would be telling me how awful the IRS treats people, and he's right. Like they close their offices, you can barely get their attention, and so I think that if he's given Donald Trump the same measure of earful that I've gotten about how bad the IRS is, I can only imagine that's what Donald Trump's thoughts were, is let's put the guy that hates the IRS in charge of it.
I'm fascinated.
So I think it's a perfect appointment. He is absolutely qualified for it, and he's got the right attitude to do it.
I'm fascinated by this description of Billy Long as like a superstar in Japan. I'm still hung up on that. I had no idea that was a thing. It makes me think of that Seinfeld episode where he was or wasn't it Jerry Seinfeld was some sort of celebrity in Japan or something, and they tried to capitalize on it. I had no idea.
In the political circles,
right?
Everyone politically from Japan knows Billy very well.
Donald Trump, we're talking with Congressman Burleson. He sat down on Meet the Press yesterday. I thought that it was a pretty good interview. Kristen Welker, of course, approached him from a position, particularly when it comes to the border, from this position of his ideas are bad. But it seems to me as if he handled that interview really well, and I think he's just speaking in a manner, particularly when it comes to deportations, that most Americans can agree with.
Yeah, a lot of her questions, at least the ones that aired, were the more pointed and controversial topics about the things that the left thinks poorly on Donald Trump for. So she's kind of building up And this is what the left is going to do. They're going to build up the narrative that this is, how awful it is. You're going to separate families and separate children. And I think Trump just directly called her out on it and said, when he said, you're going to create a story, you're going to go and wait for that one moment with some beautiful family. And he said, and we know that you're going to do that, but let me explain. I think that this is the wisdom of somebody who has been there and done that. So he knows what to expect today, and that's not the same Donald Trump of 8 years ago.
Right.
So I think that he did a great job. The best part of that interview, I don't think it aired. You can catch glimpses of it on Twitter, but it's where Trump just says to her directly, he said, you have so much potential, Kristen. This is after a long line of really negative questions. He said, you have so much potential. People would respect you if you would only be fair, if you would just be even and fair and not so partisan. And he said, but it's obvious that you're extremely partisan here. It was almost like he was just giving her a counseling session. It was great.
What's the chatter also up there? I mean, I know that the focus is on the Senate, but Hegsworth, you've got a number of these nominees, Patel and others, that are seen as potentially problematic. You've got editorials saying, "Oh, he's going to get in." Then you've got some say, "No, he's not." Are you getting a sense of the direction of things when it comes to some of these nominees?
I think the Senate is going to be a problem. When Thune put out the schedule, and it was that they're going to be in session for 5 days a week for the first few months, that is an indication that he's not going to, the Senate is going to try to avoid any recess picks, and they're doing that. They're blocking out the calendar to make sure that there's no chance for a recess pick. That to me is an indication that you're going to play hardball with the president. Right. The other thing is when you see some of these senators like Joni Ernst, who's manipulating things behind the scenes to try to get Pete Hegseth knocked off, that's disgusting. And a lot of these senators' attitude towards Matt Gaetz was the same way. It's very petty, personal, and disgusting. And what I said on Twitter, that's gotten quite a bit of attention, but I mean it, is that my message to the Senate and to literally every member of Congress really is that this individual, Donald Trump, has gone through hell and back for this country. They threw everything at him, right? And then he survived 2 assassination attempts, literally took a bullet to the head for this country. And the American people voted him in with the highest Republican turnout in the history of the United States. He led nearly every ballot. So he led all of those senators. And when they talk about coattails, he absolutely had the longest coattails. He drug them into the majority. How dare you? Right. How dare you challenge this man's picks? He knows what it's going to take to save this country. The American people gave him a mandate, and the American people need to pay attention to who's going to be an obstacle to Donald Trump.
Yeah, I agree, and I hope my fear is that Republican leadership won't do much about it, particularly when it comes to primary seasons. They get so worried about the quantity over the quality in terms of numbers and what Republicans do get elected. Part of it also, it is the message that they seem to not get, or maybe they don't care, is that Donald Trump's election is one in which the people have said, we're just tired of the insider game. We're tired of the same crap over and over again. And then you see some of these Republicans that it's not even just that it's in opposition to Trump, but it's just the same stuff. It's like, what do you not get about these elections?
Yeah. They clearly don't see that the American people have sent a mandate.
Before we let you go, Congressman Burleson, anything else?
Now to touch, and this kind of segues into touch on what you just said. while the leadership is going to have their normal try to reelect the people that are, the swampy moderates.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's inspiring me and giving me a little bit of hope is this Doge effort, and the fact that Elon last week all of the Republican conference went and stood. And how much time do I have before
as much as you need?
Okay, I've got a funny story.
Okay.
We were all asked to come to listen to Elon and Vivek, and they gave their presentation. They basically said, we're going to take a sledgehammer, and we need you to be ready for it. We're going to move quickly, and we need your help. We need you to know that we're not going to tinker around the edges here. We're going to go big, and we're going to go fast and hard. And then, ironically, when they opened up the microphones, all of the most swampy members, the most moderate members, were the first ones in line at the microphones, basically trying to get FaceTime, say nice things. One member even tried to get Elon to retweet her tweet.
Oh
and
gosh.
It was pathetic. And the best part was then after that, Chip Roy goes to the microphone and he said, we know who the enemy is. We've met the enemy, and the enemy is in this room.
Right.
He said, your problem is in this room. This is a group of people, when it came to spending cuts, and he started rattling off a laundry list of grievances, financial grievances in the last 2 years of the Republican parties joining with Democrats to raise the debt ceiling, to add a $200 billion new liability to Social Security, to not cut any expenditures. And Elon's response to Chip was, we're going to pay attention. He said, we have a platform, Twitter. We're going to tell the American people who is going to be an obstacle to our efforts.
Fantastic. Love hearing that. That does also give me some hope. Congressman Burleson, thank you, sir.
Have a great day.
All right, you do the same. Safe travels. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. All right, Santa's Angels underway. We've got dozens of kids that still need to be adopted. Anchor Tactical Supply, A1 Custom Car Care in Republic, Pinnaker Chevrolet in Republic, Crown Power and Equipment, Greene County Freight and Food Sales, all partners in this with the trees up. We ask that you stop by any of those locations and adopt a kid or more than one, and it's something fantastic to do with your own children or your grandchildren, and while help out those that are less fortunate at the same time. We have all the details at KSGF.com under Santa's Angels. Also, while you're over at KSGF.com, you can register to win before you can buy tickets. Legendary Sticks, special guest Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon live at Thunder Ridge Nature Arena Saturday, June 7th. And like I said, those tickets will go on sale at 10 o'clock Friday, but you can get registered to win a pair before you can buy a pair.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it'll be cloudy with a high near 54. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 30. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny and breezy with a high near 41. And on Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 38.
Gender neutrality has resulted in the complete shutout of actresses at Monday's Gotham Awards in New York, with the lead and supporting acting prizes going to male performers. Actresses including Nicole Kidman, Demi Moore, Mickey Madison, Saoirse Ronan, Marianne Jean-Baptiste all went empty-handed. They all went home empty-handed. The Gotham Independent Film Awards introduced gender-neutral acting categories back in 2021 at a time when the entertainment industry was embracing transgenderism and other forms of gender nonconformity. Other award shows and festivals to go gender neutral include the Independent Spirit Award, the Berlin Film Festival, even the MTV Movie and TV Awards. There's been a movement to pressure the Academy Awards to use gender neutral acting categories, but the Academy has so far refused to bow to the pressure of the campaign. At the Gotham Awards on Monday, actor Coleman Domingo took home the lead acting prize for A24's prison drama Sing Sing, while his co-star Clarence Macklin won the supporting acting prize. The Gotham Awards for Breakthrough Performer, which has always been gender neutral, went to Brandon Wilson for Nickel Boys, Amazon's MGM poetic drama about race relations in the 60s. And the prize for Best Picture went to A24's A Different Man. So you've got this attempt. I'm telling you, every move that is made in order to promote transgenderism, women are the ones who suffer. We've seen it largely in athletics. We've seen it when it comes to the privacy of restrooms and the privacy of showers. And now it's made its way into the world of acting. The benefit of having a male and a female category, an actor and an actress category, is that you are going to end up with an equal number of women winning as men win. But what, of course, occurs is this attempt to be inclusive by pretending as if gender doesn't exist, pretending as if male and female are these fluid definitions in which anybody can be everything. So in other words, words don't matter. They have no meaning whatsoever. Male has no meaning, female has no meaning. And when it comes to an individual with XY chromosomes, there is apparently no definition for that individual that separates that individual from, someone who has two X's. And what's the result of at least this most recent Gotham Independent Film Awards? Not a single woman walking away with a prize. All in the name of being inclusive. And it's just with this great frequency and consistency that when the left attempts to or claims to be the champion of any particular sort of cause, they actually do damage to it. And this is the political party that still claims it's the party of women, yet who is it that every time this issue of transgenderism comes up, it is a woman who suffers. You don't see all women walking away. Now, what's the only way to remedy this? The way to remedy this is to have separate categories for men and women. But of course, they can't do that because you get to pick what you are. When you allow people to compete in athletics, in whichever category they want, men or women, they get to choose which gender is it that loses the scholarship? Which gender is it that loses the slot to go to the Olympics? Which gender is it that gets bumped from a gold to a silver, or a silver to a bronze, or a bronze to a participation ribbon? It's always the women. You do not hear about guys getting screwed over in these instances. You don't hear about guys losing the top slot, or a guy feeling triggered because he's a rape victim whenever a woman comes into the men's shower identifying as a man. You don't hear about the men losing out on scholarships or prizes to women. And now when it comes to the arts, you certainly didn't see with these Gotham Independent Film Awards men walking away with no trophies because women got all of them. In fact, it once again is the woman who is taking a back seat. For a political party, that being the Democrat Party, that claims to champion women, there in my lifetime, and many of your lifetimes, never been such an effort, successfully in many instances so, to force women into that second-class citizen status as has been done under the Democrats' cultural push for all this transgenderism stuff. Well, they've, again, painted themselves into a corner because what is the only way to guarantee that women do not miss out on these awards? And that is to give them their own category, but you can't do that. Coming up, the Village People, sick of YMCA being called a gay anthem. They're going to start suing over it. Bradford Light from Kansas Territory Brewing Company and Macadoodles and Price Cutters through the area. Modest ABV, 3.8%. Bradford Light, crafted with precision and care, offering the crisp and refreshing taste that satisfies without overwhelming. A beer that speaks to the dedication of the hands that built the heartland. Brought to you by your friends at Show Me Beverage, straight from Washington, Kansas. Kansas Territory Brewing, Bradford Light again, area Macadoodles and Price Cutters. We're having this conversation off air about what happened to feminism. Feminism that once upon a time was supposed to be about lifting women up, and now you have the political feminist movement that is putting women back second-class citizens because of the embrace of transgenderism. And I think what has occurred here, in fact, I'm sure what has occurred here is you had what once upon a time was about being a woman that shifted into more about causes of the left. It was a political movement. Well, the political movement of the left is so often not, in the context of domestic policy here in the United States, based off being tethered to any sort of truth or reality, but it is whatever the Republicans say is wrong. I mean, it really does boil, in some instances, down to that. And I'm telling you, what has occurred is we got to a point in this country where you get, one or two weirdos that want pornography in libraries for elementary school kids, that want to push for and allow children to have cosmetic surgery so that they can look as if they're the opposite sex. They want these things that once upon a time Republicans and Democrats all agreed upon. Like, no, that doesn't make sense. That is child abuse. That is child pornography. These are awful, horrible things. But somewhere along the lines, the Democrats became a political party in which they are defining themselves based off of good versus evil. So anything that a Republican or a conservative stands for, by definition, is evil, which means they have to take the opposite approach. And so as we began to see the one or two weirdos out there that want the sex change operations for kids, that, the first people to speak up and say, no, that's not a good idea, were Republicans, and generally, oftentimes, Christians as well. And so what has happened is you have the Democrat Party that, again, they see themselves as good. Republicans or conservatives as evil. So if Republicans are against pornography in elementary schools, then they have to be for it. If Republicans are against girls being forced to shower with boys, well, Republicans are evil, and so we are the good guys, so that means we have to be for it. If Republicans are against castrations for boys and lobbing off the breasts of girls and sex change operations and all of these horrifically macabre medical experiments, well, Republicans are evil. So if they're against it, then that means being for it is good. And it's, and oftentimes it is just straight up a knee-jerk reaction, and it does boil down to something as simple as that. And it was something that the Democrat Party and the left at some period in time decided that, well, we have to take the opposite position. And because feminism became something that was more about pushing the left's agenda instead of actually promoting females, that means that they, as a political movement, that feminism movement as a political movement, sees where the right stands on these issues, and the right is bad, so that means they have to take the opposite position. So inherently what they end up doing is taking a position that is actually anti-woman.
Well, I'm glad that you said that last part, because I am just genuinely curious. Like, can you pinpoint where this actually shifted?
Yeah, and I, like I said, it's been a number of these things. It's the transitioning of feminism into something that is solely political, and then the political nature of taking the opposite position of conservatives and Republicans. And when the Republicans, again, would speak up on a number of these issues, protecting girls in sports and from these surgeries and so forth, by default, that is what the Democrat Party has become. We have to take the opposite position and paint conservatives as being extremist, as anti-this. And that's how all of that, has come to be, where feminism became leftism. Leftism became anything that the right stands for is bad, so the opposite is good, and how you end up with so-called feminism that is in support of anti-woman initiatives that come along with the trans issue. And women are the ones that ultimately are going to really stop the absurdity of this. And we already see that occurring. We see it with the Riley Gaines in a more activist role, but we're seeing it increasingly at school board meetings or athletic events where girls are standing up because they're being forced into these unfair and often very unsafe situations. And finally, for the people that like studies so much and would throw out this absurd argument that, well, there's no study that shows boys have an advantage over girls in this and that. The United Nations, of all places, put forth that study about the tremendous amount of advantage that men have over women, that boys have over girls, and the amount of physical injuries and damages that have been done to young female athletes because they were forced to compete against boys. And you and I don't hear these things because the media does not want to cover it, because they don't want you to mistakenly believe that women are getting screwed over when it comes to this entire push. But the fact of the matter is they are, and they are beginning to, to speak out more and more. I really do believe that, like so many of the other movements of the left, movements that require effort from everyone oftentimes die out. And I think the exhaustion of even things as simple as having, what's my pronouns? You see these things, the different press releases that get sent out from different government agencies, and they have their pronouns listed. And then I think a lot of people who aren't into all of that, they've done it because they thought, well, this is just, a way to be accommodating and a way to be open-minded. But after a while, it just gets tiresome. And then demanding that people comply with whatever imaginary new gender that you've come up with. And I think that it's going to eventually wear itself out. And I was actually the other day wondering, if there are some of these corporations or some of these government entities that at one point were really putting a focus on making sure people put their preferred pronouns in their communications if they're slowly starting to back away from it. Most things that are absurd eventually do work their way out. New things come about, but all of this nuttiness with the transgenderism and the treating it as something that should require everyone to revolve around the individual transgender person, and these horrific medical experiments that are being done on young people that our European allies have already figured out is something that shouldn't be done. We're just way behind the curve on it, but at some point, I think that it will eventually fade itself out. Unfortunately, there are countless young people whose entire lives have been destroyed and will be destroyed because of the sickness of some of the adults that want to push this upon kids. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Was that you that sent a Build-A-Bear for Build-A-Star?
Yes. Shooting my sponsored Facebook ads. I was like, oh, I gotta screenshot this and send it to Nick. I shouldn't have
It's
named
everywhere.
a star for you. I should have named a Build-A-Bear. Because then you also get the star with it. It's only $45.
And the bear comes with it?
Uh-huh. Inflation hasn't hit that yet.
I guess not. The Village People sick of YMCA being called a gay anthem. They're going to start suing over it. Victor Willis, the lead singer and songwriter of the Village People, clarified that their hit song YMCA was never a gay anthem and that his wife will pursue legal action against anyone perpetuating the claim. Willis thanked President-elect Donald Trump for reviving the song's popularity in a lengthy Facebook post Monday, noting its rise to the top of the charts after Trump used the song in his presidential campaign. The singer also expressed frustration over the persistent, misguided framing of the song as a pro-gay propaganda. Quote, come January 2025, my wife will start suing each and every news organization that falsely refers to YMCA, either in their headlines or alluded to in the base of the story, that YMCA is somehow a gay anthem, he wrote in a Facebook post. There's been a lot of talk, especially of late, that YMCA is somehow a gay anthem, he wrote. I've said numerous times in the past, this is a fake assumption based on the fact that my writing partner was gay, and some, not all, of the Village People were gay, and that the first Village People album was totally about gay life. To that, I say once again, get your minds out of the gutter. It is not. The singer expressed gratitude to Trump for using the song, emphasizing his authority over the canon interpretation of the lyrics, writing, I am the singer and writer of the lyrics to hit YMCA. In fact, as was adjudicated and ruled in the U.S. District Court, I wrote 100% of the lyrics, and my writing partner, Jacques Morali, wrote the music. As I stated on numerous occasions, I knew nothing about the Y being a hangout for gays when I wrote the lyrics to the YMCA, and my writing partner, who was gay, never once stated such to me. In fact, he never once told me how to write my lyrics. Otherwise, I would have said to him, you don't need me. Why don't you simply write the lyrics? He broke down the meaning behind the song to drive the point home. Saying that I wrote YMCA about the things I knew about the Y in the urban areas of San Francisco, such as swimming, basketball, track, and cheap food and cheap rooms. And when I say hang out with all the boys, that's simply 1970s black slang for black guys hanging out together for sports, gambling, or whatever. There's nothing gay about it. And so now why his wife is the one that's going to sue over it, I don't know. And I don't know that you can really sue for referring to it as a gay anthem now he claims that if you go to gay clubs, you're not going to hear this song being played. This isn't even a gay anthem in the minds of the gay community. I have no idea whether that's true or not, but it did make me wonder, why did Trump start using that song?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
The singer, I think his name is Victor Willis. He said, I guess it was on Fox News a couple weeks ago, that he would be open to performing at Trump's inauguration. Yeah. He should.
I wonder if they started playing it just because it's a song that everyone knows and that there's a dance to it, and so you play it to get people excited, as opposed to a lot of other songs that, not everyone knows the lyrics to, and it's upbeat and it's fun. And I'm wondering if that's why the song started to become synonymous with these Trump. Yeah, I'm just curious. Yeah, I'm just curious. It's something as simple as that. Usually, it's the simplest explanation. Turns out to be the true explanation. Please visit KSGF.com today and pick an area location for Santa's Angels to adopt a kid. We got just over a week in order to get all that done and taken care of, and we'd much, much, much rather have it as done as possible by the end of this week, as opposed to a lot of the last-minute stuff. Glenn Beck is coming up next. I will talk with you tomorrow. News in 2 minutes. I'm Nick Reed.